billions in donor support are hanging in the balance, and development programs across Nigeria and the continent are bracing for impact. From small community health initiatives in Adamawa to major gender-based violence interventions in Lagos and water sanitation projects in Cross River, the knock-on effects are real, immediate, and potentially devastating.
So, what does this mean for Nigeria's development sector? How will NGOs and partner organizations survive this dramatic aid cut? And what are the political implications on global scale? Joining us, we've got guests here with first-hand experience in development communication and also global politics. First, we have Esther Hadiza-Ijeaku, Principal Consultant, Skill Hub Consulting, and also we have joining us Joy John, International Political Analyst. We will also be expecting our Leonard from Cleverco, and he will be, well, giving us his own insight into the matter. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us. Now, I'm going to start with Esther. Esther, I'm hoping that you can hear us. When you first heard that the USAID was being shut down by the Trump administration, what was your initial reaction?
Good morning, and thanks for having me on the show, talking about something really important. Just going straight to your question, when the news hit, I was in shock. Not because it was totally unexpected, because if you've worked in the sector for a really long time, like I have, you would know that funds for projects had been shrinking for the longest time. I would even say as far back as 5 years ago. And jobs were going, projects were getting shorter, and funding was getting smaller. But the announcement by the American government of the cut of USAID, or the pause, the 90-day pause, to just think about what they wanted to do, was shocking because they're the biggest donor, I think, globally. So the implication is far-reaching. Usually we like to think that it's only NGOs that are impacted by it. I know people that were very happy, and I know people who said, okay, now let's see whether you guys have good ideas or you really do what you said. The passion will carry you through, you know. But there's a whole ecosystem that depends on the funding that the USAID brings to Nigeria. And I think we will feel it, not just the development sector. Communities will feel it, government will feel it, private sector vendors will feel it. Other donors also are feeling it because the pressure has just gone up on a global scale. So generally speaking, shocking, but the realization that truly that's their logo, because in Skill Hub Consulting, we always refer to that logo that says "from the American people," is actually a privilege, not a right. So we have actually come into the reality that this was a gift. This is by choice. And if it's not there, then what do you do? So it's a shocker, and I think the realization of the impact and how far-reaching it is has only begun. And unfortunately, I would say it will get worse before it gets better.
Esther, I'm very concerned when you say we will feel it, and then you follow that with it will get worse. Exactly how does it manifest, these cuts?
Okay, so I think it was almost like pulling the plug on a lifeline, right? There are development projects that USAID was funding in different thematic areas. So you have whether it's water and sanitation, emergency response, that's the humanitarian side of things, just responding to emergencies. But for development over time, they've been funding things like gender-based violence, even democracy and governance. Why I say that we'll feel it, let me give you a quick example, is elections will come in 2027. Usually during the life cycle of elections, by 2 years to the time, there's a frenzy. USAID is talking about democracy and good governance. They have released their request for proposals. People are giving ideas of what they want to do to increase participation, to get excluded groups to participate, like women in politics. Now, that is off the table. That is just a simple example to tell you that Down the line, when it's close to elections, it will be a case of, but you guys, you used to have programs, you used to come and do this, you used to train and advocate for certain things. The funding will not be there unless we come up with something real quick and pivot. We will all feel it. That's what I mean. Just using that simple example, we will feel it down the line.
All right. We're being informed that our Leonard is going to join us shortly. But in the meantime, let me come to you, Joy. I mean, the big question here is why did the Trump administration decide to cut or shut down USAID, and why now? Joy, we cannot hear you.
You might be muted, Joy. You might be muted. Oh, yes.
Okay.
There we go.
We're breaking up here.
So, Joy, if you can hear me, I was
asking.
Yeah, I was asking about why the Trump administration has decided to shut down USAID, and why now?
Okay. Well, I'm going to. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Well, only those inside the administration can speak to the timing of this decision. But of course, it didn't come as something new with Trump 2.0. What we do know that it's a prerogative of any administration to reassess their foreign assistance. This move now aims at aligning aid with more strategic interests, and that said, I know the reactions have been divided, with many welcoming this as a targeted approach, but others are very, concerned about the long-term development impact, just like Esther highlighted in her statement.
All right. Now, Joy, as we're talking about, this, we also do have to look at, what this means for U.S. as a global leader. Where does the U.S. stand in all of this? You think that as they're cutting down, because that means Africa, their influence of Africa, if they're removing the USAID in Africa, their influence will sort of recede, and that would open more markets or more ways for, of course, China and most eminent at this point, Russia. What do you think about this?
Well, that's a valid concern, but it's not a simple cause and effect. Yes, China and Russia are expanding, but I think African nations or African, leaders or leadership in Africa also value long-standing U.S. partnerships built on education, health, and security cooperation. A shift in this aid policy, what was stripping, of the assistance from USAID, might create room for others to step in, but I think the soft power that the U.S. has, the trusted institutional ties, still gives the U.S. Meaningful edge in Africa, regardless.
All right, Joy, thank you very much. We're told that Aro Leonard has joined us. Aro, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I wanted to note some things that Esther said. Esther noted that, this is going to pinch us. This is going to actually become more evident as we get down the line closer to the elections. Now, Mr. Aro, there are certain people who actually do not see this as a blessing. Some people actually believe that it's about time for the USAID to pack up and leave. They applauded it when the Trump administration cut funding to the USAID and then further on to Africa. Well, what are your sentiments regarding the situation, Mr. Aro?
Personally, I think we're sorry about the network challenges, first of all, and it's good to be here. I think that sometimes such kind of development makes us lazy as a country, and it makes us not look inwards. Now, yes, my colleagues in the sector, we all miss the funds, and it's definitely going to cause a lot of problems, but the only reason why it's causing a lot of problems is because of the lack of planning we've had in Nigeria over time and our lack of ability to look inwards and strategize. As far back as 2009, I was part of the the team that went to South Africa to study the South Africa HIV strategy and campaign. And as far back as then, South Africa had 70% locally. The funds for all projects were 70% local and 30% foreign. Whereas in Nigeria, we'll be talking about 80% foreign. But that is not even the issue, not just the funding, it is the idea itself. Most projects are initiated from outside the country that don't even really speak to what we need in the country. So that's the kind of thing. We just sit down, lay back, and wait for donor fund to come, or whatever they tell us to do, we do. And that's why we keep going round and round in the same circles over and over again. Way back, 1999, I was part of the, I shot the team, the Senate Committee on Niger Delta, when the NDC was about to be set up. Just speaking with the mobile officials alone in Akwa Ibom State, you could see a lot of things that they've done. In Nigeria, we have a certain percent of the budget that goes for certain projects. 3% goes for ecological fund and so on. You have education tax, you have special tax for development that is given to the oil companies and so on. Now, what stops us from really harnessing these funds and planning and being strategic about how those funds are to be used? Identify key sectors where these funds should be used, and then plan towards it. We'll find out that in Nigeria we have enough money to take care of some of these needs. Why would it be that USAID just stops and then the entire HIV treatment sector in Nigeria would just collapse? It means that the government is not doing what it's supposed to do. And it's better it stops now, just the same way subsidy was taken away from us, so that we'll see the realities of what it is and start doing what we should do. We have enough funds in Nigeria. If we plan properly, harness all these funds, there are lots of investors here, set out this kind of, for instance, the philanthropists we are talking about that are coming from the US and everywhere.
All right.
They only send money into those coffers because of waivers the American government has set in. We could do the same in Nigeria, collect the same money and strategically plan for what kind of development it should be used for.
All right. I must have to ask you, Esther, because he just cited a very, very crucial matter that Nigeria faces, and pretty much all of the continent of Africa faces, and that's the HIV prevalence, right? And how it's still not being more of a local concern, and the USAID and other donors have to step in to support communities and affected persons. And so what then is now a local contingency, that can help navigate this time as USAID have now cut, donor funding? What will happen? What are local contingencies or funding or development organizations like yourself are doing to aid in this time being, pending when the government maybe redirect funding to issues like these?
Well, thank you very much, and I quite align with quite a bit of what Aro had said, especially around planning. I think it goes without saying, generally in Nigeria, we always talk about poor planning and poor maintenance, lack of tracking. There is no project that USAID or any donor would have funded that doesn't have a plan in place. But whether that plan is followed and whether that sustainability that we claim that we're kind of integrating into the project design is being implemented or not is the big question. Now, for me, this is a test. We talk about being sustainable, we've done it for 5 years, we can continue, and all of that. Now is the time that we will see whether those sustainability measures that we put in place are going to work or not. That said, in terms of contingency, I think it would be unfair in some ways to say, okay, now that they've unplugged it, let's go and figure yourself out, right? Even the whole country, we are not isolated. These programs are not isolated. The problems are not isolated. HIV cuts across everywhere. So if we're talking about solutions, we have to look at solutions from the big picture. How are we doing as a country in terms of how the government is rolling out its programs, how it's putting its finger on the pulse of what the priorities are for the regular Nigeria like yourself and myself, and what resources are being put aside for that work. That said, we should even think about novel ways or innovations around funding the work that we do. For us in Scale Up Consulting, we've been talking about funding sources. Why are we dependent on charity? Why must we wait cap in hand for funding to be given to us? We need to explore things like social enterprise. We need to explore partnership with the private sector. This morning, as I was thinking through, just before I came on the program, I was thinking, why can't government collaborate with pharmaceutical companies that can produce some of these medicines that are needed?
All right.
And have an arrangement, So we have to be innovative. We have to think ourselves out of the box because that's the only choice we have now. And usually that helps. It forces you to think and to do something different to have a better result.
Thank you. Joy, you've been following this administration closely, and so I do have to ask you, it's my final question for you as we wrap up the hour. Do you think you've been watching the Trump administration closely, do you ever see a time where there will be a reversal on this EO regarding, USAID? Joy, can you hear me? John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. So I have to play, there's just a lag in the questions coming in. So you asked if it will be a normal in the America's foreign policy?
Yes, I was asking if there will ever be a reversal on this executive order of shutting down USAID. Will the Trump administration reverse the executive order on stopping USAID to Africa?
We have struggled with network connection all day. Could you please repeat that? I'm going to actually try to play that on a different device to see if I can hear the question.
Okay. I was asking, do you think that the U.S. administration will reverse the decision?
Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. I get it now. I'm sorry. If I keep cutting in, I apologize to you viewers. So it's a very difficult thing to predict at this time. With this administration, it's done. Done and dusted. It is done. I wish there was a better way to put it across, but there's no bending back with this right now. For future administrations, if a different government comes in or a different party takes over, they may adjust the scope of the messaging, but the broad trend towards a strategic, measurable age is likely to remain. If this was won by the Democrats, we probably would have seen a different approach. I don't think we would have gotten here. But there's a growing bipartisan interest in accountability and sustainability in foreign assistance. And what that means, or whether that means more or less aid, will depend on how the global dynamics and domestic priorities continue to evolve. But I want to piggyback on what Esther had earlier said. I think that it's also a wake-up call for African governments. It's a wake-up call for African nations to stop relying on foreign aid. We have so many resources in Africa. We're blessed with so many natural resources. I would love to see, the African Union come in. I want to see the leaders take hold and stop begging for foreign assistance. This is really a blow to most African nations. We've come too far to still be depending on this or to be debating this. So in the long run, I think that we can't start predicting what they will do or hanging on to ifs or buts. We just have to take it as it is at this moment.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we must say thank you for taking out the time to join us. Joy John, our guest today, international political analyst. Also joining us was Leonard there, as well as Esther Hadiza-Ijeaku. She's a principal consultant, Skill Hub Consulting, and also Leonard, who is a development communications expert, Clavaro, there we go, communications Everyone, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.